The dust swirled around Alex's worn boots as he stepped off the transport truck, his duffel bag slung awkwardly over his shoulder. Everything felt big and new and a little scary. This was his first time at a real military base, far from his small hometown. He was only 18, and while he trained hard, a part of him still felt like a little boy playing dress-up in a uniform that was just a bit too stiff. He was a quiet person by nature, more comfortable with books than with loud crowds, and the constant hum of activity here made his stomach flutter. He clutched the crumpled piece of paper with his bunk assignment, his eyes darting around the busy yard. Soldiers in various stages of training hurried past, their voices a confusing mix of shouts and laughter. Alex wished he could just disappear into the background. He adjusted his glasses, a nervous habit, and tried to look confident, but his hands were a little sweaty. He knew he was the rookie, the new guy, and that came with its own set of challenges. He'd heard stories about how older soldiers liked to tease the new ones, and a shiver ran down his spine. Finding his assigned barracks felt like a small victory. He pushed open the heavy door, a squeak echoing through the mostly empty room. There were several bunk beds, each neatly made, but only 2 seemed to have personal items. He found his name tag on the bottom bunk near the window and dropped his duffel bag with a soft thud. The quiet was a welcome change, but it wouldn't last. He knew he'd have bunkmates soon, and he wondered what they would be like. Would they be tough? Friendly? He hoped for friendly, but prepared for tough. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. This was it. His new life had officially begun. Alex had just finished unpacking his meager belongings when the barracks door swung open with a bang. 2 figures, much taller and broader than him, stepped inside. They were wearing crisp uniforms, and their confident strides told Alex they'd been here a while. His heart gave a little jump. Well, look what the cat dragged in, one of them said, a grin spreading across his face. He had kind eyes, but there was a playful spark in them that made Alex a little wary. You must be the new guy, Alex, right? Yes. Alex stammered, feeling his cheeks grow warm. He stood a bit straighter, trying to appear less like a scared rabbit. The first soldier stuck out a hand. I'm Mark, and this big lug, he nudged the other man, is David. David chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. Don't mind him, rookie. He just likes to hear himself talk. David's smile was just as friendly as Mark's, but with a hint of something more knowing. He had a strong jaw and a glint in his eye that made Alex wonder what kind of trouble these 2 usually got into. Nice to meet you both, Alex managed, shaking Mark's hand, then David's. Their grips were firm, strong. So, Alex, from the looks of it, you're not exactly built for heavy lifting, are you? Mark teased gently, eyeing Alex's slender frame. Alex felt a blush creep up his neck. I'm stronger than I look, he mumbled, a little defensive. David clapped him on the shoulder, not too hard, but enough to make Alex nearly stumble. We'll see about that, soldier. Don't worry, we'll whip you into shape in no time. But first, let's get you squared away. Looks like you're still figuring out which end of your rifle points forward. They both laughed, and Alex, despite his nervousness, found himself smiling a little too. They were teasing, yes, but it didn't feel mean. It felt like a welcome, a rough and tumble way of saying, you're one of us now. He still felt a bit out of place, but maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be so bad after all. As the days turned into a routine of drills and training, Alex found himself constantly fumbling with his gear. His backpack never seemed to sit right, his straps always tangled, and his uniform always seemed to have a wrinkle in the wrong place. Mark and David, meanwhile, moved with a practiced ease, their equipment looking like a natural extension of their bodies. They noticed Alex's struggles, of course. It was hard not to. One evening, after a particularly frustrating field exercise where Alex had almost lost his canteen and his helmet kept slipping, Mark caught his eye. Rough day? Huh. Rookie? He said, a sympathetic look on his face. Alex sighed, running a hand through his sandy hair. Everything feels so complicated. I just can't get this stuff to work right. He gestured vaguely at the pile of gear beside his bunk. David, who had been cleaning his rifle, looked up. It takes time, Alex. We've all been there. He then exchanged a quick glance with Mark, a silent message passing between them. Tell you what, David continued. After lights out, when things are quiet, we can give you a proper gear check. Just us in here. We'll show you a few tricks. Alex's eyebrows shot up. A gear check? Really? You do that? He was surprised and grateful. He'd been trying to figure things out on his own, too proud to ask for more help than he already received during training. Mark nodded. Sure thing. It's important to have your gear in top shape. Could save your life one day. Plus, he winked, it'll make things easier on our eyes when we're not watching you trip over your own boots. David grinned. Just make sure you're ready. It's a thorough check. His voice had a slightly deeper tone, a subtle shift that Alex didn't quite catch. Alex just felt relief wash over him. Finally, some real help. He imagined them patiently showing him how to adjust straps and pack things efficiently. Thanks, guys, he said, genuinely appreciative. That would be a huge help. He had no idea what kind of thorough check they truly had in mind. The hours crawled by after Mark and David offered their help. Alex spent the evening sorting through his gear, trying to organize it himself, but only making it worse. He kept picturing his pack falling apart during a drill or his helmet tumbling off his head during an inspection. The thought of being laughed at, or worse, getting in trouble, made him even more anxious. So, when David had suggested the late-night gear check, Alex had felt a wave of relief. He really needed the help. As lights out approached, a hush fell over the barracks. The other soldiers in nearby bunks settled down, and the sounds of the base slowly faded to a low hum. Alex pulled out his tangled straps and oddly packed bag, laying them out on his bunk as best he could. He felt a mix of nerves and eagerness. It was nice that Mark and David, being older and more experienced, were willing to spend their personal time helping him. It made him feel a little less alone in this big, new world. A few minutes after the final lights-out call, a soft whisper came from Mark's bunk. Ready, rookie? Alex whispered back. Yeah, I think so. He couldn't see much in the dim light filtering in from outside, but he could make out the shapes of Mark and David sitting up. Good, David's low voice replied. Bring your stuff over to our bunks. We could get a better look that way. Alex gathered his gear, feeling a bit awkward as he shuffled across the dark room. He carefully placed his backpack and other items on the floor between Mark and David's beds, which were next to each other. The air felt different now, quieter, more private. He sat on the edge of Mark's bunk, a little closer to them than he usually was. He was ready to learn, ready to finally get his gear sorted out. He looked up at their shadowed faces, grateful for their kindness. Alex sat expectantly between the two bunks, his gear spread out before him in the dim light. Okay, so what should I start with? He whispered, eager to begin. Mark leaned closer, his voice a low rumble. First things first, Alex. A proper gear check isn't just about your backpack. He reached out, not for a strap or a buckle, but gently touched Alex's shoulder. His fingers lingered there, a warmth spreading through Alex's uniform. David moved closer on the other side, his presence warm and comforting in the cool night air. It's about making sure everything is in order inside and out. His hand brushed Alex's arm, a light touch that sent a shiver down Alex's spine. It wasn't a cold shiver, but something else entirely. Alex felt a flicker of confusion. This wasn't how he imagined a gear check. He thought they'd be showing him how to roll his socks or tighten his pack straps. But their eyes, even in the darkness, seemed to hold a different kind of interest. Mark's gaze dropped from Alex's eyes to his lips, and a breath caught in Alex's throat. Sometimes, Mark continued, his voice softer now, the most important things to check aren't made of canvas or metal. He slowly moved his hand from Alex's shoulder down his arm, his thumb gently stroking the fabric of Alex's sleeve. David's fingers, meanwhile, had found their way to Alex's neck, his touch feather-light. Exactly. We need to make sure our rookie here is comfortable, relaxed. His voice was a gentle murmur, almost a purr. Alex's mind raced. This was definitely not about his helmet. The air in the small space between their bunks grew thick with unspoken words and a strange, new kind of tension. He could feel the warmth radiating from both Mark and David, a closeness that had nothing to do with helping him pack his canteen. His heart began to pound a little faster, not from fear, but from a growing sense of wonder and a shy, unfamiliar excitement. The gear check had truly begun, but it was Alex himself who was being inspected. Alex swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. The soft touches from Mark and David were a complete surprise, a jolt to his quiet, orderly world. His mind raced, trying to make sense of it. This wasn't like anything he'd ever experienced or even thought about before. He'd always been focused on his studies, on getting through basic training, on just being in the army. Boys, girls, relationships, they hadn't been on his radar. Yet, despite the shock, a strange, warm feeling bloomed in his chest. It wasn't fear. It was more like a curious pull, a gentle tug towards the unexpected attention. Mark's fingers moved from his arm to his wrist, lightly tracing the pulse there, while David's thumb softly stroked the sensitive skin behind his ear. Each touch sent a tiny shiver through Alex, making his skin prickle with sensation. He felt a deep blush creep up his neck, even in the dim light. His breath hitched as Mark's face drew a little closer, and Alex could feel the warmth of his breath on his cheek. David, on the other side, leaned in too, his eyes searching Alex's face in the dark. Alex couldn't look away from either of them. A mix of nerves and excitement swirled inside him. This was uncharted territory, exciting and a little bit scary, like standing on the edge of a tall diving board for the first time. He'd never felt such direct, focused attention from anyone, especially not too strong, confident men like Mark and David. A part of him, the quiet, curious part, wanted to see what would happen next. He didn't pull away. Instead, he found himself leaning just a little closer, drawn in by their unspoken invitation. The gear check had turned into something entirely new, and Alex was, surprisingly, ready to explore it. The air thickened with a quiet understanding as Alex leaned into the soft pressure of Mark and David's closeness. Words weren't needed. Their hands, which had been gently exploring his arms and neck, now moved with a deeper purpose. Mark's fingers found their way to Alex's hair, brushing it back from his forehead with a tender touch that made Alex's eyes flutter, closed for a moment. David's hand, strong and warm, rested on Alex's back, a silent promise of support. Alex felt a sense of calm settle over him, mixed with a dizzying new sensation. He opened his eyes, meeting Mark's gaze first. In the faint light, Mark's eyes held a kindness that went beyond mere friendship, a gentle question that Alex answered with a shy, almost imperceptible nod. Then, David's hand moved from his back to cup his jaw, his thumb stroking Alex's cheekbone. David's eyes, usually full of playful mischief, were now soft and serious, reflecting a tenderness that made Alex's heart ache in a way he hadn't known it could. Slowly, carefully, Mark leaned in, and his lips, soft and warm, met Alex's. It was a gentle kiss, a tentative exploration that tasted of surprise and a sweet, budding curiosity. Alex's own lips parted slightly, responding without thought. As Mark pulled back just a little, David took his turn, his kiss deeper, more confident, yet still full of a careful respect. Alex felt a wave of warmth spread through him, a feeling of being truly seen and wanted for the first time. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the sleeping forms of other soldiers, the three of them shared a secret, a silent language of touch and unspoken feelings. There was a fragile intimacy, a shared vulnerability as they explored this new connection. It wasn't just about physical closeness, it was about the soft brush of their spirits, finding a harmony in the darkness. Alex felt a strange, beautiful acceptance, a sense that he was exactly where he was meant to be, held safe between these two men who had offered him more than just help with his gear. As the gentle kisses faded and the soft touches lingered, a comfortable silence settled among the three men. It wasn't just a quiet moment. It was a space filled with a deep, shared understanding. Alex felt a warmth spread through him, not just from their closeness, but from a feeling of being truly seen and accepted. He looked from Mark's softened face to David's steady gaze, and he saw a reflection of his own surprised joy in their eyes. Mark was the first to break the silence, his voice a low, tender whisper. "Well, rookie," he murmured, his thumb gently stroking Alex's cheek. "I'd say that was a pretty thorough check." A small, fond smile played on his lips. David chuckled softly, his arm wrapping around Alex's waist, pulling him a little closer. More thorough than you thought. Yeah. Alex? He squeezed gently. We just had a feeling. A feeling that maybe you were looking for something. More. Alex, still a little breathless, managed a shy smile. I didn't know I was. But I think you were right. He felt a lightness in his chest, a freeing sensation he hadn't known he was missing. The nervous boy who had arrived at the base was slowly, wonderfully, changing. In that moment, it became clear to all three of them that this wasn't just a one-time thing, a moment of fleeting intimacy. The gentle touches, the shared glances, the quiet acceptance, it all pointed to something deeper, something meaningful. The gear check that had started as a playful trick had transformed into a real connection, a silent promise of something special. It was a bond that had formed in the secrecy of the night, a quiet understanding that they all felt a pull towards each other, a shared space where they could truly be themselves. This wasn't just about Alex's gear anymore. It was about the gears of their hearts finding a way to fit together. As the night grew deeper, the three men remained close, a shared warmth spreading between them. The initial surprise and hesitant exploration had given way to a comfortable closeness. Mark and David, usually so boisterous, were now quiet, their expressions soft and content. Alex, who usually felt so restless, found a peaceful stillness he hadn't known he craved. After a while, David gently untangled himself from Alex, stretching a little. "We should probably call it a night, rookie," he whispered, though his eyes held no real desire to leave. "Don't want to get caught by any early bird sergeants." Mark gave Alex's hand a squeeze before letting go. "Sleep tight, Alex. Your gear's looking pretty good now, I'd say." He winked, a playful glint returning to his eyes, but it was softer now, kinder. Alex gathered his gear, which now felt lighter, somehow. He moved back to his own bunk, a new feeling bubbling inside him. It wasn't just relief about his equipment. It was a profound sense of connection, a secret joy. He pulled his blanket up, but sleep didn't come right away. Instead, he lay there, basking in the memory of their touches, their soft voices, and the unexpected tenderness of the past hour. He glanced over at Mark and David's bunks. Even in the dark, he could sense their presence, a comforting weight in the room. A new, secret bond had formed between them, a delicate thread woven in the quiet hours after lights out. It was a shared secret, a promise of something new and exciting that made the daunting military base feel a little less lonely, a little more like home. Alex closed his eyes, a warm smile on his face, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring, knowing he wasn't quite as alone as he thought. The morning bugle blared, startling Alex awake. For a moment, he forgot where he was, then the memories of the night before rushed back, painting his cheeks with a faint flush. He felt different, lighter, like he was carrying a happy secret. Getting dressed for morning exercises, he moved with a new spring in his step, his gear suddenly feeling more manageable, almost as if it had magically sorted itself out. He saw Mark and David already up, moving around their bunks with their usual practiced ease. Mark was humming a tune as he laced his boots, and David was neatly folding his blanket. They seemed, on the surface, just like any other morning. But Alex felt the change, a subtle hum in the air between them. As Alex finished buttoning his shirt, he glanced up and met Mark's eyes. Mark held his gaze for a moment longer than usual, a soft, knowing smile playing on his lips. It wasn't the playful smirk from before, but something warmer, more intimate. Alex felt his heart skip a beat, and he returned the smile, a small, private gesture that held all the unspoken words of the night. Then, David looked over, his eyes twinkling with a shared understanding. He gave Alex a quick, almost imperceptible nod, a tiny gesture that spoke volumes. It was a silent acknowledgement, a secret shared between the three of them that no one else in the busy barracks would ever guess. They went about their morning routines, joining the other soldiers for breakfast and then heading out for drills. But for Alex, everything felt different. The base, which had once seemed so cold and impersonal, now held a hidden warmth. Every now and then, he'd catch Mark or David looking at him. A quick glance, a gentle smile, a brief touch on the arm as they passed. These small, secret signals wove a tapestry of connection around them, making the harsh realities of military life a little softer, a little brighter. The shift was subtle, but to Alex, it was everything. Life on the base continued its busy rhythm, but for Alex, Mark, and David, a hidden rhythm had begun. Finding time alone was tricky, like trying to catch mist, but they managed. They became experts at stealing moments, little pockets of privacy in the constant hustle and bustle. Sometimes it was just a few extra minutes after everyone else had left the mess hall, their hands brushing under the table as they lingered over empty coffee cups. Other times, it was a shared walk back from the training grounds, Alex falling a little behind with Mark and David on either side, their shoulders bumping just a little too often. A quick touch on his arm from Mark, a gentle squeeze on his back from David. These small gestures became their secret language, a comfort in the open, watchful environment of the base. The barracks, after lights out, remained their most sacred space. The gear checks became a regular, whispered ritual. Alex would bring his gear, not because it needed fixing anymore, but because it was their excuse, their signal. In the deep quiet of the night, with only the distant sounds of the base as a lullaby, they would gather between their bunks. The actual gear would be pushed aside, forgotten, as their hands and lips found each other in the darkness. These were moments of soft kisses, hushed whispers, and gentle caresses, exploring the tender new feelings that had blossomed between them. They were careful, always listening for sounds, always aware of the thin walls separating them from the rest of the world. But the risk only made their stolen moments feel more precious, more real. Alex, once so shy, found a quiet confidence in their shared secret. With Mark's steady strength and David's warm affection, he felt a sense of belonging he'd never known, a safe harbor in the heart of the military base. As weeks turned into months, the secret bond between Alex, Mark, and David grew deeper, weaving itself into the fabric of their daily lives. The military base was a tough place, demanding and often lonely, but their shared connection became a powerful source of comfort and strength for all three. For Alex, their affection was like an anchor. The constant drills, the loud commands, the exhaustion, it all felt a little less overwhelming knowing that Mark and David were there. Their quiet smiles across the mess hall, a reassuring pat on the back during a tough exercise, or the stolen moments of tenderness in the barracks helped him feel grounded. He found his voice more, speaking up in discussions, no longer the quiet rookie hiding in the shadows. He knew he was cared for, truly seen, and that made all the difference. Mark and David, too, found something precious in their trio. Mark, usually the strong, silent type, allowed himself to show a softer side with Alex and David. He found joy in the simple acts of caring, a gentle touch or a whispered word. David, with his playful spirit, discovered a deeper well of tenderness. Their connection with Alex brought a quiet happiness, a sense of home and family that was hard to find in the Army. They leaned on each other, sharing worries about missions, offering encouragement when spirits were low, and celebrating small victories with a warmth that only they understood. Their bond wasn't just about stolen kisses. It was about the silent support they offered each other every single day. It was knowing that no matter how hard things got, they had each other. This secret love, born in the dim light of a gear check, became their shield against the harshness of military life, a silent strength that made them all feel braver, more resilient, and deeply, truly loved. Even with the deep comfort their love brought, the secret itself was a heavy cloak. Every shared glance, every lingering touch carried a small thrill of danger. The military was a strict world, and their kind of love was not openly accepted. They had to be careful always. One afternoon, a drill sergeant walked into the barracks unexpectedly, just as Mark was playfully ruffling Alex's hair. Mark pulled his hand back quickly, and Alex jumped, pretending to adjust his cap. The sergeant eyed them for a moment, his gaze sharp, before turning away. The moment passed, but it left a cold knot of fear in Alex's stomach. "That was close," Alex whispered later to David, his voice shaky. David squeezed his shoulder, his own face grim. "Too close. We need to be smarter." They learned to create subtle signals. A particular way Mark would clear his throat meant watch out. A slight shift in David's stance meant all clear. They became masters of casual conversation, of looking away at just the right moment. The fear of being found out was a constant, quiet hum beneath their joy. It made their stolen moments sweeter, but also tinged them with a bittersweet awareness of the risks they were taking. Sometimes, Alex would lie awake at night, the fear creeping in. What if someone saw them? What would happen? Would they be separated? Sent away? The thought was terrifying. But then, he'd feel the comforting presence of Mark and David nearby, hear their soft, even breaths, and the fear would lessen. Their love was a risk, yes, but it was a risk they were all willing to take. Their bond was too strong, too important to let fear win. They faced these challenges together, silently, drawing strength from each other to keep their precious secrets safe. The fear of being found out was always there, a shadow at the edges of their joy, but it never stopped their love from growing. In fact, the very act of keeping their secret, of relying on each other in such a vulnerable way, seemed to make their bond even stronger. It was a love forged in the quiet rebellion of their hearts against the strict rules of their world. For Alex, the days on base, once a gray blur of duty, now held bright spots of anticipation. He looked forward to seeing Mark and David, to their quick smiles and reassuring glances. The tough training, the long marches, the strict discipline. It all became more bearable because he knew he had them. Their love was a warm blanket on a cold night, a secret garden in a barren landscape. It made him feel seen, cherished, and complete in a way he'd never imagined. Mark and David, too, found a deeper happiness. Their connection with Alex brought a richness to their lives, a quiet fulfillment that went beyond their soldier duties. They often talked about their future, not just their military careers, but a life together, even if it had to remain hidden. Their shared love for Alex, and for each other, was a silent promise that they would navigate whatever challenges came their way, together. Their relationship transformed the mundane into the magical, the harsh into the hopeful. The barracks, once just a place to sleep, became a sanctuary. The whispers in the dark were not just words, but anchors of affection. Despite the constant need for caution and the ever-present risk, their love made their lives on base not just bearable, but deeply fulfilling, giving them a purpose and a joy that brightened every single day. As the months passed, the three soldiers grew not just in rank and skill, but in the quiet strength of their shared love. The base remained a challenging place, full of hard work and tough rules, but their secret world was a constant source of peace and happiness. They learned to communicate with glances, with the slightest touch, building a bond that no uniform or regulation could ever break. One evening, after another gear check that had, as usual, turned into something much more tender, they lay close together in the dim light. Alex rested his head on David's chest, while Mark gently stroked Alex's hair. The barracks was silent, everyone else asleep, and in their small world, they felt completely safe. "What do you think the future holds for us, guys?" Alex whispered, a touch of worry in his voice. The outside world felt so big, so uncertain. Mark squeezed his hand. "Whatever it holds, Alex, we'll face it together. That's a promise." His voice was firm, full of quiet confidence. David kissed the top of Alex's head. "He's right. It won't always be easy, but having each other makes everything else worth it." He looked at Mark, a deep, loving understanding passing between them. Alex felt a warmth spread through his chest. He knew they were right. Their love wasn't a fairy tale, especially not here, but it was real and strong. They had found each other in the most unexpected place, and that was a kind of magic all its own. They might not know what tomorrow would bring or where the army would take them, but one thing was certain. They would face it as three soldiers, Three hearts, bound by a love that had started with a simple, playful gear check and grown into an unbreakable bond. They looked forward to their future, not with fear, but with the quiet, powerful knowledge that they had each other, no matter what.